The scene starts with someone screaming, asking what Jagger wants, and saying that if there's anything he can do, he will do it. But Jagger, determined, asks for his neck and slices it in two. As he watches the flames consuming the building, he takes out a cigar and throws it into the fire, then walks away. As Jagger runs through the forest, he thinks that he's getting tired and that they should send reinforcements once he finishes up here and reports it. He is introduced as Signature Jagger, and Jagger says he doesn't want to fight with something like that, but as he senses a dangerous attack approaching, he barely dodges it, and the tree beside him is sliced in two. The drooling orc locks his gaze on Jagger and charges down. Jagger wonders how this thing could be anything like a wild animal, thinking that the source of it must be that sickening cry or its uncontrollable movements. It must be one of those damn demonic swords. As the orc tries to slice Jagger, charging at him, Jagger counters by slashing it with his sword. As the orc again uses his striking, Jagger barely dodges the slash, noticing numerous trees being cut down. He thinks it's trying to show off, proving it's truly a demonic sword. The orc continues to attack, but Jagger dodges effortlessly, using the flying wood as footing to charge down at the orc and slash him. But Jagger realizes it was too shallow, as the orc is still regenerating. He thinks this isn't worth it at all and curses the old man, deciding he'll demand twice the pay when he returns. Jagger uses his special technique to parry Orc's attack, but his sword breaks in two. Jagger continues to fight as he uses his special slash to slay the Orc's head, splitting it in two. After taking a break, he thinks he's dying and his sword is done for. All that's left is to take care of things when he hears a voice inviting him to come closer. The sword promises to give him everything, the power to slay anything and fulfill any demand, so it beckons him to come to her. Jagger realizes he's walking on his own and can't stop. If he picks up the magic sword, he might end up like the orc, lying dead on the ground, unable to control his body as he's about to touch the sword. The sword tempts him to slay and resent everything, but when Jagger grabs the demonic sword, nothing happens. The sword screams, "What? What is happening?" and demands that he listen to her. But Jagger throws the sword into the depths of the sea as it sinks. Jagger thinks about the demonic sword and how the old man scolded him, demanding evidence and accusing Jagger of lying. Jagger thinks the old man didn't have to be so cheap. He can't even buy a sword with what he was given. Then he encounters a little girl, wondering if she's a lost child. As Jagger tries to leave, the girl grabs him, saying she's speechless and can't believe he would throw away his owner, questioning if he's in his right mind. Jagger, sweating, wonders what's with this kid, telling her she's got the wrong man and trying to leave. But the girl gets angry, shouting if he's going to act like he doesn't know her after fondling this queen's body and demanding to know what kind of nonsense he's up to. Jagger is shocked by this and teleports right in front of the girl as the crowd whispers, calling him a pervert. Jagger tries to reason with her, asking what exactly she's accusing him of, to which the girl retorts that it's what this queen wants to say. She demands to know how he dared throw her into the lake without any thought, and she can't believe he doesn't recognize her. Jagger asks if she's that entity, and the girl confirms, saying she is indeed the demonic sword he threw away. As the girl introduces herself as a demonic sword, she accuses him of lacking self-awareness as a servant. But then she notices Jagger has already disappeared. Jagger, now in an alley, thinks he barely managed to escape her and almost got his nose knocked off. Suddenly, the girl appears beside him, asking why he's excluding her. Jagger asks how she got there when it's a dead-end street, to which the girl explains it's because she's a demonic sword. She adds that wherever he is, she can go anytime she wants. She says that Jagger seems like he doesn't believe her, but the girl shrugs it off, saying it doesn't matter. Since he has this queen, he's now her servant. Jagger shivers at her words, questioning what she's been talking about. The girl insists that it's natural for him to become her servant the moment he takes her on. Jagger, trying to leave, dismisses her rant, telling her to go home and stop talking nonsense, The girl insists he's been ruled ever since they met, introducing herself as Minerva. She urges him to look at her true form, as Minerva sarcastically responds, telling him to kneel down and show respect to this so-called queen. But instead, Jagger grabs her hand and drags her to a building. Once inside, the man at the building asks why the guy who said he'd never come again is back. Jagger replies that he's here to deal with a demonic sword, shocking Minerva. The old man at the building gets nervous, asking where the demonic sword is. Jagger nonchalantly points to the girl. The old man, nearly about to get his nerve popped, asks if Jagger's serious. Before Jagger can explain, Minerva cuts in, calling Jagger brother, saying no matter how much trouble she is, he shouldn't try to sell her. Jagger protests that she doesn't have to act like that, but the old man, angered, shakes the whole building as he scolds Jagger. After a massive scolding, Jagger and Minerva leave, with Minerva questioning how dare he try to sell the queen. She says it's 3,000 years too early for that. Jagger, frustrated, asks why she's doing this. But Minerva reminds him that she's told him repeatedly that the moment he took hold of this queen, they were destined to be together until the end of their lives. Jagger mutters a curse in response. The scene shifts to a carriage, where Jagger, chewing on something, thinks he really didn't want to go to city, but now, because of her, he can no longer accept questions from the village cult. Trying to make conversation, Jagger asks her how she, as a demonic sword, can change into a person. Minerva ponders over it for a while to say that she's not entirely sure. She just can. She's curious and even wonders how they could escape control while holding on to this queen. Jagger says he doesn't know. He just wanted to. They move past this topic as the helper calls out that they've arrived. Jagger thanks him for the free ride. The helper asks if he's interested in an escort quest and suggests stopping by Rose's place. Minerva yanks Jagger, saying if he's going to hit his head on the ground, he should do the same to the queen. Jagger glares at her, calling her a nuisance, and leaves, telling her if she doesn't like it, she can go alone. Minerva runs after him as she screams at him. In Kai Province, largest city Epilim, where she marvels at how much humans have developed. As Jagger and Minerva continue bickering, Jagger notes that they've arrived. Minerva asks if he's going to sell the queen again, to which Jagger retorts that she must be crazy, asking what she's talking about. As Jagger nervously tries the open door, Minerva asks why he's so uncharacteristically nervous and what plan he has. When he finally opens the door, a receptionist confronts Jagger, who asks if they accept quests. The receptionist requests to check his identity first and asks for his identification card. When the receptionist realizes he's Signature Jagger, the nearby warriors are shocked to see the Warrior of Doom there. Minerva tries to suppress her laughter as Jagger asks for a list of quests. The receptionist warns him about the difficulty, but Jagger says it's fine, and she hands him a letter of introduction. The nearby people are gossiping that the Warrior of Doom assassinated the worst duke and is one of the 5 great warriors. Jagger thinks that's exactly why he didn't want to come to the city, while Minerva struggles to hold back laughter, and Jagger mutters a taunt about her being a lump of steel. Minerva says that it's disappointing to think that the quest he got was just this, and he has no courage, calling him a Warrior Doom, for which Jagger asks her not to call him that. As Minerva again calls him the Warrior of Doom, as 10 minutes before, a woman thanks Jagger for coming as she was worried that there was no news for a while after the quest was posted, for which Jagger asks if that is so. As the Marquis says, she can only trust it to him now, for which Jagger assures that he will find it no matter what. As Minerva finds a beautiful cat in a painting, saying that she has a cute cat, as Minerva got smacked out. As Jagger says, he can't understand how these nobles think, and to think that they would close down the whole garden just for a cat. As Minerva says, to think a warrior would be out looking for a cat, angering Jagger as he shouts at her, asking her to be quiet and saying that it's all because of her. As Minerva asks that, why is he putting the blame on her? For which Jagger screams that because he broke his sword, and how he's supposed to do the quest without a weapon. For which Minerva asks, "What does he mean? Doesn't he have a sword? Doesn't he have this queen? And to think it carefully, and if he wielded him without any conditions, wouldn't he be the strongest?" As Jagger thinks that truly if it's as she says, but as he flicks down Minerva, making her cry, saying that a child acting like that isn't effective. As Minerva is teared out, saying that calling him a candy addict and warrior of doom. As Jagger thinks that it is too quiet even for a closed-off park, and even the usual sound of birds chirping is gone. And as he questions that, did some demonic beast take over this place, as he doesn't even have a sword right now? As a mysterious monster sneakily attacks on Jagger as he barely blocks it out, as Jagger recognizes it as a saber-toothed tiger. Jagger was wondering why a quest to look for a cat was ranked, and to think they would call a saber-toothed tiger a cat. As Minerva asks, it seems like they are in a dangerous situation, for which Jagger drops her out. As Minerva scolds him, what is he doing now? For which Jagger asks her to go stand in the back and not to let her get hurt. As Minerva asks if that is the problem right now, as the thing is behind him, but as Jagger punches down the tiger. Minerva can't believe this, with just a twig that bulky body is getting hit upon. As Jagger, with his overpowered techniques, corners down the saber-toothed tiger as he looks down upon it. Jagger thinks that stranger, saber-toothed tiger is a smart creature, so it should concede after sensing the difference in the power, but to keep fighting even after knowing that should be because of something else. He thinks that, of course, it had babies. As Jagger gets close to the tiger, asking him to calm down, saying that he has no intention of harming him, and he came because the Lady Marquise was worried about him. As the tiger gets close to him, as Jagger says, he can tell why it's called a kitty cat, as he's quite heavy, as the tiger is licking down Jagger. The scene shifts into the Marquis's house, as she calls the saber-toothed tiger a troublemaker, as she made her worried. As the Marquis thanks Jagger for completing the quest, as to see that Jagger is getting beaten down by Minerva. As she thanks the warrior of doom, Jagger asks if she knew even though he's specifically traveling to the countryside to hide his name, for which Marquis says that is hard for nobles to forget such a name, but that aside, what is the relationship between the two of them, for which Jagger calls out, saying that she is a stranger, but Minerva says that Jagger's is her servant. As they bicker around with each other, Marquis comments that it seems to be a peculiar relationship, as Jagger asks, why did she name it Kitty Cat? For which Marquis says that when she first met this child, she really thought it was a cat, and even now it's still cute as a kitten to her, but the others probably don't see it that way. It probably ran away from the house because of that, and she was probably thinking that she did not belong here, so she would like to take this chance to tell him that she wants to send this child back to her original home. And Jagger asks that she is talking about the saber-toothed tiger's home, for which Marquis says that it's the place he is thinking, the area to the farthest east, Sigman, in Epilim, as all the nearby people are mesmerized by Jagger. Jagger says that it's quite distracting to have a saber-toothed tiger with them, as the crowd screams that they are so cute and want to take it home. Minerva comments that they are lowly humans, and they can't take their eyes off her beauty. Jagger says that she's lucky, to which Minerva asks what he means, and Jagger says that he wishes he could be like her, with no thoughts in her head, angering Minerva. Minerva annoyingly asks where they are going now and says they were going to Sigman or something. Jagger says that he has to stop by a place. Minerva asks where this place is, to which Jagger says that he's going to buy a sword and asks if that's okay. As Minerva holds down Jagger, Minerva groans, saying, "Is it the wind?" As the scene shifts into the shop, the keeper welcomes Jagger and the party to the best Epilim weapon branch, asking how he may help him. Jagger says that he would like to buy a sword, a high-quality one. The keeper thinks that no matter how he looks at it, Jagger doesn't seem capable of buying his famous sword. The keeper asks, why doesn't Jagger take a look around the store as their supplies are excellent, to which Jagger says that he will take a look, as he will have to decide whether to buy it or not. As they move out to see it, Minerva comments that the guy is really strange, no matter how good humans' swords are, to which Jagger says she is still better as he pats her. The keeper directs them to a place, saying the luxury department is here. He asks if the sword Jagger is looking for is for hunting monsters on the non-standard grade and says this sword will be perfect. Jagger asks what the name of it is, and the keeper says the name of the sword is the Red Dragon. Jagger says that if it's the Red Dragon, it's the sword of the legendary hero Arryn's Gunfield, who killed dozens of dragons alone. The red color of the sword blade, made of the spine of the Red Dragon, and the graceful curve are its characteristics. As the keeper is shining from its beauty, Jagger asks how much the sword costs and thinks that indeed it is the largest weapon shop on the continent. The keeper says the price is 10 million out, and Jagger asks to excuse him, thinking it was a joke. The keeper then introduces the white sword sniper, made by the master blacksmith Naren, and continues to ramble. As they continue to move on, Jagger asks what it is, to which the keeper says that he saw it, didn't he? It's a new item recently received, a sword discovered by Sir Carol, one of the 5 warriors. It's not on display yet, and the name and price are not decided. As Jagger tries to hold it, the keeper asks him not to touch the merchandise, but seeing the penetrating gaze of Jagger, he relents. Jagger holds it out as the sword resonates with him. Jagger says that he will buy this sword. In the slums, Minerva says she doesn't like it and wonders why she has to sleep in this place. Jagger says that he spent all his money buying this thing, and if she doesn't like it, she can go outside and sleep, as he's sleeping just fine. Minerva scolds him, saying it's bad enough that he cheated on her with another sword, but he's also going to put her in a shabby place. Jagger says he wants to sleep, as Minerva shouts at him, calling him a disloyal warrior. Jagger tells her to be quiet, as this is the slum, at night, as they are snoring off. Jagger hears a cry and wakes up, moving out. He moves out to see a white-haired girl. Jagger says he doesn't know what's going on, but tells her that crying won't solve her problem. As the girl moves around, Jagger tries to recognize her, and she asks Jagger if he is not going to die. The girl says that everyone she has been with has died. Even the kind ones, even the brave ones. She didn't want to be with anyone anymore, but Jagger asks if she could be the one. The girl introduces herself as Soie and says she is the cursed sword that is bound to him. Jagger asks the sword he bought at Epilim is her, and the people who wielded them all commit suicide. As the girl says that yes, Jagger sighs out as the girl gets emotional, apologizing to him, saying that she resolved herself to never be contracted again, but she was urged by an unknown power. As Jagger pats her, saying that he's not sure how he was contracted to her, but he will promise her one thing for sure, as he will definitely not die because of her. As Soie recalls of an unknown girl who is crying out, saying that she will one day meet that person as well, a partner that she will want to spend the rest of her life with. As Soie asks for his name, as Jagger introduces himself as Signature Jagger. As from behind, Minerva comes in, saying that she came because the room suddenly turned cold and there's someone she hasn't seen before. As the girl introduces herself as Soie, Soie asks what she is doing, as Minerva teases her, saying that she has heard down everything from downstairs, and she's a demonic sword, as she says that she will show her the prize for attempting to steal someone's servant. As Jagger grabs her head, calling her a punk, Minerva gets angry, saying that he's a problem too, as he already has a demonic sword. As Jagger asks her to be calmed down and listen to her, since she is the Unni, and she has to act respectful. As Soie to take care of her, calling her Minerva Unni, as Minerva giggles down to ask Soie to call her that again. The next day, as Jagger asks, that shall they get going now, as Minerva screams that, where are they heading off to again? as Jagger wields down Soie, saying that he will be going to buy a sword, as Jagger smacks the door on the keeper. As the keeper asks that what is the meaning of this, for which Jagger asks to forget that and bring out that owner, for which the keeper says that he must be crazy, and he must not know where this is, as he asks his guard to educate him a bit, as the guy asks Jagger to get lost when he's speaking nice, but Jagger throbs him with his fist, saying that he must not understand human language and he wants the store owner, and not some security sensing that. As Jagger points his sword at the keeper, saying that he is not going to call them, as the keeper screams, to question that if he thinks that he will get away with this, and does he know who he is. As from behind an old man screams to Jagger to stop him, as the keeper calls him father. As the keeper says that it's nothing and please go ahead, for which old man says to keep quiet as the issue looks to be with this person. As Jagger asks that is he the owner of this store, for which the old man abides by saying that before that does he mind giving him a reason for doing this, as he will have to pay the price if he is not satisfied with the reason. As Jagger says, the reason is simple. His name is Signature Jagger, and he has a moniker called the Warrior of Doom. As he unearths his sword to penetrate it into the ground, he says that would this reason be enough if Weapons Best, the world's best weapon shop, sold a demonic sword to a warrior, and this place would have been a land of disaster if he couldn't withstand the demonic sword, and then what would have happened to Weapons Best, who sold him the demonic sword? As the keeper tries to say, that is a lie, and Warrior Carr vouched for it himself, for which Jagger says that of course he didn't want to make a big dollar off it either, but he will be taking in compensation. As Jagger anxiously unsheathes his sword, saying that he will be taking an arm as he slashes through, but as his father comes in between to stop it. As he cries out, saying that it's his fault. It's the fault of a father who didn't raise their children well, so he pleads to take his hand instead of as compensation. As Jagger says, that is a tear-jerking father love, and how about this then, as he proposes a plan? The keeper pleads with his father that he just wanted to help a little, for which the old man calls him a useless betid. As the keeper gets angry, cursing out Signature Jagger, Soie asks Jagger, does he really plan on taking that person's arm? For which Jagger says that he is not some crazy person and what he's going to do with someone's arm then. As Soie asks, then since the beginning he was aiming for the sword, isn't it? For which Jagger says the 2 for 1, and he was giving a lesson for his nasty personality as well. As Soie asks why did he go so far? For which Jagger that it's his life's motto, gratitude 2-folds, resentment 10-folds. As Minerva drooling, asking when Jagger is coming back. At the Rose Cathedral, Minerva says that he is always frowning as Jagger is quite attached to the sword, saying that if someone sees him, they might think he has met his soulmate, for which Jagger says that is a normal sword unlike someone. As Minerva warns him, saying that he never knows it could be another demonic sword, for which Jagger says that her jealousy is unbecoming, there was nothing wrong with it for 500 years. As Soie calls Jagger, saying that he is big mean, and he has only been paying attention to that child since a while ago. As Jagger tries to convince her, saying that it's not it, and it was because he was just making sure it was a normal sword, Soie asks him not to make excuses. As Jagger thinks that his feelings are like a déjà vu, Soie asks that he was fondling him so passionately as the surrounding people hear this and think again of Jagger as a pervert. Jagger asks that he will scold her if she doesn't stop right here, for which Soie answers that it's Jagger's fault this time. As Jagger grabs her head, saying that it was his fault, and asks for forgiveness, for which Soie says that only this time. From behind, a person calls Jagger, saying it's nice meeting him as he is Mark Blentier and they will be working together on this trade escort quest, and it's an honor to work with the Warrior of Doom, for which Jagger shakes his hand, thinking that the trade company must have leaked it. As Mark says that the party of the Warrior is peculiar as he greets Minerva, saying that they will be together for a while, for which Minerva asks not to strike up a conversation with her, calling him a lonely person, but to see his bald head, she gets excited. The scene shifts into the carriage. As Minerva asks, "That is boring. Isn't the human world too peaceful?" Jagger says that not really, just difference. It shows a difference between how humans and demons fight. But as he asks, how dare she do that as Minerva is playing hair with Mark? Jagger glares at her, saying that to get over here, as Minerva asks Baldy to protect her as Jagger shouts at her to get here, as Minerva screams that she's getting doomed by a warrior as a huge ruckus takes place. At night, Jagger apologizes as they have bothered, for which Mark says that it's all right as he's used to it, as he blabbers on the compliment of Minerva as Mark says, "That isn't it better for her to be like that as it's..." As Mark says that he will find out later that, aside, he asks, "Isn't it fate meeting up like this?" as he takes out a drink saying, "How about a glass?" for which Jagger recognizes that it's the honey alcohol that's only sold in the Carbon Holy Kingdom. For which Mark says that it's said that as long as one has this alcohol, they will survive, even if they get captured by the dragon, for which Jagger says that it's there, but he's okay without it. But as Mark shoves the glass towards Jagger, Jagger takes it. As Jagger asks if there is something else, for which Mark says that they need a side dish, Jagger's story should be enough. As Jagger says in his story, he reveals that he lost his father and started on his path to being a warrior in the year that he turned 15. There were people that took him in without any questions, but later he found out that they were the hunting dogs who would capture and sell the descendants of warriors to Duke Parthenon. As Mark asks, how did he survive from that kind of situation, for which Jagger is about to say, but Minerva comes in asking, what kind of exciting talk are they having that he won't even look this way? She asks, "What's that?" as the smell is quite nice, for which Jagger asks, does she want to try? For which Minerva agrees, asking that he would give it to her. As she asks, is he serious? And he is finally taking on the role of a servant, as she takes a sip, saying that it's already the queen's drink, as Mark tries to warn her, saying that is something that adults drink. Jagger answers that Mark had asked how he survived back then. Thankfully, that day a missionary came and saved him, and he learned something from him first. To pay gratitude twofold, resentment tenfold, and second, for people that come to him smiling. Minerva is feeling quite dizzy as she is about to fall off as she cries that he tricked him again. Jagger says not to trust them, and doesn't he agree, calling him Mr. Mark? As Mark unsheathes his sword to attack Jagger, he blocks it. Mark asks that when did he notice, for which Jagger smiles out, saying that is that even a question as he parries it to deflect the sword. As Mark orders his lackeys to get Jagger, Jagger reveals that he knew from the beginning. As the attacks shove down at Jagger, he deflects them easily as the other one tries to strike him up, but Jagger parries it back. From behind, Soie comes in as she asks that what's this for, and Jagger asks her to take Minerva and get out of there. Soie tries to convince Jagger to use her by saying that it's dangerous, so for which Jagger says that it's fine as he will be over soon. As one of the lackeys, calling him an insolent Brad, asking what he means by so over, for which Jagger, glaring at him, says that it doesn't seem like a wrong thing to say. Besides, isn't it against the rules to ask who hired him? As he tries to slice him, saying that he doesn't know but it really doesn't matter, as the other assassins try to attack Jagger, but Jagger blocks it away. As from above, Mark jumps in to strike a meteor strike as Jagger. As a huge blow takes place and Jagger barely blocks it, Jagger thinks that what a mindless brute attack it is, and his vision is not good, but as Jagger flees from the ongoing attacks, Mark asks that it was good that he doubted them from the beginning. But if this is all, he is disappointed in the Warrior of Doom. As Jagger throws out the strike to use his Jagger vision, he tries to dodge the assassins using the flying snake greedy frog technique to deflect from the assassin's attack and to envelop them in fire. As he uses his technique to parry with the other assassin, to question if he hides his skills, and he's not just a warrior in name as, Mark warns him that he will have to pay for his prank as he uses his attack, and Jagger takes a step behind to use his Jagger vision as Jagger uses his explosive step to counter the incoming strike, as a huge blast takes place. But from the smoke, Jagger comes penetrating through the attack, as Mark notices that he used his own arm as a shield as Jagger slices down the assassin and apprehends Mark, saying that he has to end this now. As Mark tries to convince him, saying that it was Kevin Argaran of Weapon Best who did it, Jagger says that he knows that as soon as they left Epilim, they hired an assassin right away. And there's only one place that would have that much hatred recently, and he should have hidden his existence from the beginning, for which Mark tries to deny it, but Jagger kills him off. As from behind, Soie comes in asking if he's okay, for which Jagger says that it's over. Soie asks, is that a problem? And why didn't he use her? Is it because he's a demonic sword and he does not trust her? For which Jagger asks that she hoped no one died because of her, as he asks her not to worry as he falls down from exhaustion. As Jagger opens his eyes in a room, noticing that he has been moved away and has been treated, he thinks that who moved him and he is healed. As from beside him a person calls and says that he still moves his body recklessly as the person greets him, saying that it's been a long time as it's the kingdom of Emilia, second Prince Pius Emilia. 5 years ago, in the new Temion, royal castle, as the first prince of Emilia, Todris Emilia shouts that the Duke of Parthenon has been murdered and orders the immediate execution of the suspected killer. Signature Jagger. Pius tries to argue that he is not a murderer but a warrior, claiming that Arson Parthenon has been committing all sorts of crimes and training in illegal acts for many years. He believes that the one who initiated the bloodline of warriors made the wicked pay for their sins, and that they should thank him instead. The other officials object, saying it is not right to accuse the Duke of Parthenon, who is the highest astrocrate of Emilia. They wonder how someone could just kill him like that. Pius responds that they all know what he's talking about, and that they should have considered who would be blamed for Parthenon's evil deeds, asking, "Isn't that right, brother?" Todris, angry, calls Pius a bit of a concubine and claims he has no idea what he's talking about. Pius then mentions the pseudonym he gave to Signature Jagger as a warrior, shifting the conversation to the present as Jagger asks where they are. Pius explains that he had something to ask and that they are on the border of Emilia. As they talk, a guard enters the room and Pius mentions that he found him while they were treating him and brought the 2 ladies who were with him. Pius adds that the 2 ladies are rather lively, and Jagger is doing a good job taking care of them. Jagger sarcastically remarks that it's all thanks to someone who forcefully gave him a title like one of the 5 great warriors, which led to him living in a rural village to avoid those who constantly challenged him. He feels more comfortable with the people he's currently with. Roaches asks Jagger to speak respectfully to the prince, but before the Roaches can draw his sword in anger, the prince tells him that it's enough. Pius asks Jagger if he agrees that he should uphold his duties, mentioning that to pay gratefulness twice and resentment 10-fold. He then says that Jagger should consider himself indebted to him, to which Jagger responds by asking Pius to just say what he wants. Pius reveals that he wants Jagger to take on a quest for him. Recently, Pius's supporters have been assassinated, which has become a frequent occurrence. Pius adds that what's strange is that the same thing has been happening to people on his brother's side. Jagger asks if Pius wants him to catch the culprit. Pius says it's fine, whatever happens, but the most important thing is that the power holders of the country fear him. A corrupt power holder is punished by the Punisher, and Pius believes Jagger is not just a warrior, but a symbol, Signature Jagger. Pius says that if he introduces Jagger from his side, he can attract many supporters. He gives Jagger a month to solve the murder case and leaves, asking him to come to the holy city of New Teman as his quest. Jagger sighs, thinking that things have become troublesome. From behind, Minerva asks if the story ended well, and Jagger tries to make an excuse, Minerva sternly says it's time to talk about his side of the story, accusing him of using her as bait and warning that she will punish him. Jagger tries to explain that no one was hurt, but Minerva gives him a small punch, saying that's not the point, and that if he is their servant, he shouldn't get hurt without her permission. Jagger asks if she missed him a lot, which angers Minerva, leading her to say she can't stand it anymore, and it's time for his punishment as she tries to bite him. Just then, Soie enters, agreeing with Minerva and saying she doesn't want anyone to get hurt or killed because of her. However, she would rather not see Jagger get hurt, so she asks him to promise that if the same situation arises in the future, he will use her instead. Jagger promises to do so. The scene shifts to a carriage, where Roaches apologizes to the prince for being rude, but questions if he is too weak to be one of the 5 great warriors. Pius explains that the Punisher was meant to be a political device, but he survives safely even after killing the highest duke of the state of power. Perhaps he didn't use him for power, but for revenge from the beginning, as he received a letter that the Duke of Parthenon would die that day and was told to contact his enemy nobles. Pius then asks if Roaches can achieve his goals at the risk of his life, like he did. Pius says he's looking forward to the coming month. In the capital, New Temion, in the Emilia Kingdom, Minerva is impressed by the fortifications, remarking that they are quite impressive for humans. The level of defense never fell, even when the Demon King or dragons rampaged. Jagger notes that it has never fallen, and that no artifacts or books have been lost, making it unique. He then asks Minerva to stop acting like a pumpkin and hurry up as they move through the streets. Soie comments on how crowded it is, saying she feels like she might get lost, to which Minerva agrees, joking that it would be okay to get rid of half the people. She considers calling on the saber-toothed dragon, but Jagger stops her, telling her to tone it down. They comply, and a shopkeeper nearby calls out, claiming that if they run fast, they can catch anything, while advertising some speedy shoes. Minerva asks Jagger to get her that treasure, but Jagger refuses. She continues to ask for other things, and Jagger realizes it's a scam. Minerva sulks, while Soie is staring towards something as Jagger approaches her to ask if she wants to have something. Hesitant at first, Soie finally asks, and the shopkeeper says it's pretty and suits his sister well, offering a cheap price. Jagger buys it and gives it to Soie, who gets embarrassed. He also gives another to Minerva, who asks if he's giving it to her because she likes it. Jagger asks if she does like it, to which Minerva responds that it's not that, and as she wears it, she claims that this treasure will save him one day. Jagger thinks to himself that New Temion is a treasure trove of history with nothing lost. He wonders if there's a way to break the contract with the demon sword, and both Minerva and Soie ask if they look like sisters while doing this. Jagger ponders if he can find a way to break it, perhaps by cutting it with a knife. The scene shifts to Pius greeting the ladies. Minerva asks if the human prince is uninterested, and Jagger says that he came here but asks what he needs to do. Pius replies that there's nothing much, just the role of a royal investigator. Jagger says he doesn't have much skill, to which Pius responds that he knows and that he's just borrowing his name. Pius wants to start the operation right away, but says Jagger's appearance is a bit weak, so he needs to be dressed up as the Terror of Emilia, the Warrior of Doom. As Minerva says, he's looking forward to it, and Pius comments that this lady has good instincts as he calls for Jagger to transform into the Warrior of Doom. The scene shifts to the party. King Winston of Emilia Kingdom asks Todris if Pius is still here. Todris confirms, saying that although Pius is a prince, he has no manners. King Winston then asks Todrius how desperate he must be to belittle his brother, even if he's an enemy, as Todrius took away all the foundations he built. Todris tries to make an excuse, saying that if it wasn't for him. The king realizes if the eldest son is putting his pride ahead of his ability, and the eldest daughter is leaving the palace because she is addicted only to pleasure, then maybe things would be different. As the second prince of the great Emilia kingdom, Prince Pius Emilia, is announced, Tadris screams, "How dare he arrive later than his father? Is he out of his mind?" Pius tries to apologize, saying he was late because he brought a guest. He then introduces the guest as the one who executed the wicked Duke Parthenon in the past. The people around them are shocked as Pius introduces the Warrior of Doom, Signature Jagger. Tadris orders the guards to arrest the noble murderer immediately. As the guards surround Jagger, Jagger tells them to stand down, saying it was a righteous act to eliminate Duke Parthenon. He unsheathes his sword, declaring that he has no shame for such an act, and fills the whole castle with his aura. Jagger dashes towards a guard, grabbing him by his neck, and introduces himself as Signature Jagger, greeting the son of the Emilia Kingdom, Winston Emilia. King Winston smiles, saying it was no coincidence that Jagger assassinated Parthenon alone. He orders everyone to step down, acknowledging the rumors that the Duke of Parthenon, who supported the first prince, had power comparable to the king. The king then states that Jagger took the life of a corrupt noble who tarnished the prestige of the country and that his will is no different from his own. However, the fact remains that the peak of this country has always been won from the beginning, as the king asks for the banquet to resume. At the grand ball in New Temion, held every 2 months, everyone appears to be smiling and enjoying themselves on the surface. However, what Jagger sees with his own eyes is a silent battlefield, where nobles are constantly vying for power. From behind, Pius approaches, congratulating Jagger on his successful debut in the social circles. However, Jagger is unsure about the kind of treatment he's receiving in this country and expresses his confusion, wondering if this is the norm. Pius explains that the attention Jagger is receiving is because of rumors about him condemning corrupt officials or calming a crying child. Jagger, skeptical, comments that he can probably guess who spread those false rumors. Pius shrugs and says that regardless of the source, the rumors mean that Jagger's achievements were impressive. For years, this area had been quiet, but now things are starting to change. Pius suggests that this is just the beginning and advises Jagger to adopt a more impactful appearance, as it might attract even more attention from those seeking alliances. Jagger reflects on how it seems that no one here cares who dies, lost in the brutal pursuit of power. Just then, a young girl approaches, looking scared. Jagger reassures her, telling her not to worry and that he won't hurt her. The girl brightens up and tells her friends that everything is okay. Soon, a group of children gather around, cheering for Jagger and calling him the true warrior of doom. From behind, Minerva arrives, commenting sarcastically that all this attention is burdensome for a servant of hers. One of the children asks if she's serious, and Minerva confirms, saying that Jagger knows better than any servant of hers. The child, curious, asks if a small mistake could result in losing their head. Minerva replies, half-jokingly, that even a slight mistake could lead to a sleepless night. The children, understanding her playful tone, start screaming and running around, pretending to flee. Jagger watches them, thinking to himself that the kids just don't fully understand the gravity of their words. Feeling overwhelmed, Jagger steps onto a balcony to get some fresh air. He reflects on how rough everything feels and how he's caught in a world where power and politics rule. From behind, a voice interrupts his thoughts. A girl asks if he finds dealing with these nobles tougher than facing monsters. She introduces herself as Princess Laurelai Emilia of the Emilia Kingdom. Jagger greets her formally, introducing himself as Signature Jagger. Princess Laurelai laughs, telling him there's no need to be so formal. She moves closer, revealing that she's frustrated with the world they live in. She points out how the moon has risen so beautifully, yet people are caught up in such boring matters. Jagger, slightly intrigued, asks her what she means. Laurelai, her voice laced with a mixture of boredom and challenge, suggests that perhaps he should try condemning her tonight, as it might be more entertaining. Jagger responds, noting that there's a rumor about the princess, earning her the notorious nickname Emilia's Tangneo. Despite the rumor, he finds her eyes too cold for seduction. Laurelai seems unfazed, playfully accusing him of making her heart ache. She then mentions that, in the end, he too is here for power, just like everyone else. Jagger acknowledges that it seems the princess doesn't like this place much. Laurelai agrees and wonders aloud how a woman with no strength or foundation could inherit anything here. Jagger, sensing her frustration, suggests that if she doesn't like it, she should either leave or struggle until the end. Princess Laurelai contemplates his words, admitting that leaving might be one option, but struggling could also be worthwhile. She smiles, saying that it was enjoyable talking to him, and hints that she looks forward to their next conversation, possibly in a more intimate setting. As she leaves, Jagger is left wondering if the rumors about her are true. The scene shifts to Jagger clobbering Minerva, who screams in pain. He scolds her, reminding her not to act out, as words and actions don't always align. From behind, Soie watches, worried that Jagger might be involved with another woman. She nervously asks him why he's acting suspiciously again, but Jagger dismisses her concerns, insisting that there's nothing to worry about. Just then, Pius excused himself for interrupting. He mentions that he's been enjoying himself and asks Jagger if he happens to know about Albert Frederick. Jagger, recognizing the name, confirms that he knows about the Steel Knight Albert Frederick, one of the 5 great warriors. These warriors are renowned across the continent for their exceptional strength, and the title is only bestowed upon those who achieve greatness at a young age. Pius then reveals that Frederick has issued a challenge to duel Jagger, causing Jagger to panic. He immediately tries to flee, fearing for his life. Pius, however, stops him and asks him to wait, suggesting that Frederick might have something else in mind apart from the duel. Pius asks if Jagger knows a man named Sigman Frederick, but before Jagger can answer, Minerva, clearly anxious, asks if they should be running away instead. The scene shifts back to the past, where a group of people is gathered. One person complains that he can't stand brawls. They are loud and obnoxious bullies, while another chimes in, agreeing that no one would like them. They're just weaklings who waste food. Among them, a girl expresses her affection for children, especially those from good warrior families. She points out that kids like Signature Jagger, who has been apprehended, have a high price on their heads. With a wry smile, she notes that the Jaggers have short lifespans, making them even more valuable. One of the men thanks Jagger for being born, lightly grazing his hand against Jagger's shoulder. But before he can continue, Jagger responds by headbutting him, causing the man to stagger back. Seizing the moment, Jagger attempts to run away, but another person trips him, reminding him that he is from the Jagger bloodline, and he should not forget that he was caught while pretending to be a monster. This man's fury boils over as he threatens Jagger, warning him never to let his guard down, claiming he could kill them all. Jagger retorts to warn him that he will definitely kill him someday, but the man kicks him down, scoffing at Jagger's threats. He taunts that he is acting all tough just because they treated him well, emphasizing that a powerless brat like Jagger can do nothing but glare. He punches Jagger down again, ridiculing him. A man says that he can do better than any demon. Suddenly, a knight swoops in from above, tackling the kidnapper. The kidnapper asks for his identity, and the man responds, calling himself Sigmund, and he has been hunting the guys for days, and it was so exhausting for him. Sigmund, acknowledging that chasing these thugs must be hard work, he casually requests that they hand over the child, offering to kill him for them instead. The kidnappers, visibly shaken, throw an axe at him, to which Sigmund responds with a smirk, commenting that their reactions are amusing. The kidnapper warns that he is relaxing in front of hunting dogs, and he must be foolish, Sigmund retorts, confirming his intentions as he extinguishes a nearby fire, blocking their vision. The kidnapper orders the girl to cast a spell, calling Sigmund a coward. but Sigmund swiftly counters, slashing the kidnapper's neck, demonstrating his skill and confidence. The girl, feeling threatened, begins to illuminate the area around them, calling for Jerry. Sigmund remarks that for a hunting dog, the kidnapper is pretty lame. The other kidnapper attempts to strike Sigmund, but he easily deflects the attack, his focus sharpening as he realizes he can't afford to take it easy anymore. In a flurry of movement, Sigmund then plunges a toothpick into the kidnapper's forehead as he punches him to send him flying. As Sigmund prepares for the final blow, the girl, sensing danger, starts casting a massive spell aimed at him. She strikes at him. As the smoke comes out, she wonders if he is dead. But Sigmund emerges unscathed, commenting that it was a close call and well executed, having buried Benjamin, another attacker. Panicked, the girl tries to escape, taking Jagger as a hostage. She shouts for him to stay back, threatening to kill Jagger if he moves. He orders him to drop his sword and kneel down. Reluctantly, Sigmund complies, attempting to throw his sword away. However, he cleverly kicks it, aiming it straight toward the girl's head. Sigmund asks Jagger if he has found a way to survive who, still shaken, Jagger replies that he has seen worse. Sigmund acknowledges Jagger's toughness and introduces himself as Sigmund, a mercenary. Jagger introduces himself in turn, saying that he is Signature Jagger, grateful for Sigmund's timely rescue. Sigmund responds with a smile, saying it's okay, and he can repay me twofold later. He assures Jagger that his motto is to repay kindness tenfold and resentment tenfold. Only a year later, Sigmund says that he didn't expect it to be this good, but now Jagger can truly call himself a chef, which embarrasses him. Sigmund thinks that it is not a big deal since that sharp's momentum has decreased. Sigmund thinks that it feels like his age. Well, it's a good thing. As Jagger asks if he is eating candy again and if his teeth are going to wear out, Sigmund says that he's in the middle of quitting smoking phase and asks him to support him. Jagger scolds Sigmund, saying that it's not good to eat too much sweet stuff, to which Sigmund replies that they say he is really a peculiar guy, and kids keep their distance from sweets. Jagger replies that he's not a kid. The scene shifts to an inn as Sigmund is happy, saying that this is it, drinking alcohol, and asks if Jagger would like to try it again. Jagger asks what it is, to which Sigmund responds that it is a restaurant. Sigmund asks him to stop eating with a knife. As Jagger handles the cooking and he will handle the visuals, how about him? Jagger says that it's not the skill level needed. Sigmund says that he is too medicated. Isn't that a problem? A man should be a bit more assertive. As he reads down the paper, he comments that it's crazy. Jagger asks why he is like this, to which Sigmund says that the Cadrigo family has been destroyed. It was one of the warrior families. The Cadrigo family is where he untrusted a missing person case to Sig. The family discovered Parthenon, and they planned to report it to the kingdom, but it is said that they were falsely accused and perished instead. As Sigmund asks Jagger to pack his things right away, he mentions that the guys from Parthenon probably smelled it, and if they stay here, they might end up dead without anyone knowing. In the middle of the night, they are running. Sigmund says that he doesn't like it, but there is no choice but to go back. Jagger asks where they are going, to which Sigmund replies that it is to the safest place on the continent. Suddenly, a slash comes in from behind, and Sigmund deflects it, saying that they have already been caught. The hunting dogs of Parthenon are here. Sigmund tells Jagger not to get too worked up. It doesn't matter as he will clear the way, so stick close while he confronts the assassins. As one assassin comes to attack Sigmund from behind, Jagger deflects it. Another tries to attack Sigmund from above, but he blocks it away. Sigmund says it's class time and tells Jagger to pay attention. He announces that when facing a group, he should use the terrain to his advantage as he deals with the two assassins. He asks the other two if they are going to fight and if they are scared that a knife is being brandished. He says that with that level of guts, they are really just hunting dogs. as he throws dust in their faces and tells them that a coward who freezes to death is indeed a coward. He then deals with the other one, saying that is this all there is to it. Back in the present, Albert Frederick, the Steel Knight of the Five Realms, asks where that kid is now. Jagger informs him that he died, which makes Albert angry. He crushes the seat off, saying that his child's name is Sigmund Frederick, and he is his only son. He had tried to return to his family to gather the strength to stand against Parthenon. Then he asks the Warrior of Doom why his son died, and if he has no intention of responding. Jagger apologizes, saying that he will show him the life of Sig, who was with him. Albert gets angry, saying that, however, there are some conditions. He hopes there is no trade involving his son's life as a bargain. The scene shifts in a battle arena filled with loud noises and cheers from the people. People in the crowd are gossiping and praising Sir Albert by saying that no matter how much others try, they are no match for him, while others were asking for the Warrior of Doom, while other people are shown betting their bar tab on Sir Albert. The scene shifts towards the stage where the higher authority executives are present. The first prince, Todris, asks his younger brother why he seems so relaxed, to which the Pias answered nonchalantly that there is no reason to frown on such a nice day as today. Todris gets pissed and curses him. Suddenly, a voice asks everyone to quiet down as the king had entered the arena, and everyone bows down in respect and welcomes the king. The king, once seated, checks around the stage to look for someone and comments that Princess Laurelai wasn't present today either, to which the prince suggests that it had been long since they have appeared in public and asks permission and if he should call her. The king rejects his suggestion and announces that there is something more important. The scene shifts towards the announcement in the arena, announcing that Emilia is the country's pride. The names of the two opponents as the Knight of Steel, Sir Albert Frederick, and the one who gets the most backlash because of what he did to Duke's signature Jagger. They are asked to enter. The arena erupts in chaos and confusion, and people start gossiping about what happened when Albert walks forward towards the stage. Sir Albert takes his helmet off and bows before the king. The king asks Albert what happened, to which he responds that he is Albert Frederick, and he has something to tell him. The king asks him to say it, and Albert states that it's a shame that he fought his junior, and in order to justify an unfair duel, he should be given a penalty. The king questions the penalty, to which Albert further adds that if Jagger's sword reaches him, he will accept it as victory and pledge to do any favor, and he wants the king to be the witness. But Prince Todris gets angry at this and lashes back at Albert, asking what nonsense he is talking about, to which the king calls him out angrily, saying that he is not the one talking to Sir Albert. Todris apologizes, and the king grants Albert's wish, thus Albert thanks him. Then Albert asks Jagger if he is satisfied with the wish, to which he responds that he is satisfied, and then Albert asks him to stop talking and fight with all his might. Then the atmosphere gets tense as both opponents take their positions and weapons and get ready to fight. Before the fight, MC asked Soie to lend him power if she can, or if it's too much for her, to which she abruptly agrees to grant him the power and asks him to feel free to use her powers. Jagger thanks her, making Minerva jealous. In the present, suddenly the whole arena becomes tense, and the atmosphere changes to an eerie one. Both opponents unleash their weapons and powers. Jagger takes the lead and strikes the ground to freeze the path. He runs up to Albert, lashing out a huge blow on him which Albert dodges, and then Albert starts to attack Jagger too. The fight intensifies as they land blows and attacks on each other, both dodging and striking one another with more and more powerful blows. Then Albert, with his strong slash of a sword, sends Jagger flying back in the air onto the ground, hurt, and declares that it is over. The scene continues after Jagger is thrown to the ground by Albert, and Jagger coughs blood, on which Minerva calls him pathetic. Minerva asks Jagger that it's still not late for him to accept her body. She further adds that if he desires, she will cut through a god for him, on which Jagger brushes it off, stating that he was just looking around there, and it's real from now on, to which his Minerva gets shocked him screaming him the bad guy, and whispers her body can also be a source of strength. Just then, Albert calls to Jagger, saying that it is enough at this point, on which Jagger calls out for Soie. He asks that didn't he tell him that he is going to show him Sig's entire life. As he calls out for Soie, he penetrates his sword onto the ground, and it emits tremendous energy over the place, which gets recognized by Albert as the fog of ice crystals. Albert realizes that with Altered becomes alert and asks himself that will the attack even bind his vision. The fight continues as Albert protects himself with the shield from Jagger attack, and then on receiving another blow from Jagger, he notices Jagger's sword and becomes astonished and recognizes it as signature Jagger's sword. He tries to understand Jagger fighting technique and declares to himself that Jagger is blocking the line of sight and raising alertness through attacks from all directions and calls it as attack from the created square. He praises Jagger by saying that his adapting tactics in a clever way is a good idea, and then the fight intensifies as both land attacks on each other. With one strong slash from Albert, Jagger is thrown back, wounded, and Albert takes a sigh of relief, and Jagger stands there losing blood. Albert realizes that Jagger's fighting style was a method of overcoming insufficient mana levels with a sword, and he calls out Jagger by saying that isn't he slowly running out of mana, and asks him to stop it now, and he gets abruptly denied by the Jagger as he says that he isn't over yet, as he still couldn't show it to him. With that, he holds his ground and swings up his sword to the ground, which creates a huge explosion towards the Albert, which he tries to hold up with his shield, and both continue the fight. Just then, Jagger swings his attack towards Albert, which catches him off guard, and thus Jagger is able to throw away the helmet from Albert's head and send it flying in the air, and throws his sword to the ground. Albert, on the other hand, tries to comprehend the situation of Jagger dropping his sword. He reminds himself that he rather needs to read just his own stance, and just then Jagger's sword emits blue light, and ice emerges out of it, which surprises Albert, and he starts questioning himself. That could it be that all the attacks all of this time from Jagger were to freeze the ground? Coming out of his trance, he quickly backs up from the ice and swings his sword up in the air to defend the Jagger's attack. Just then, Jagger swings his body up in the air and manifests in his brain that this was where he can show him now, as Albert sees Jagger swinging in the air and realizes that what this child was showing was his son, Albert. Could he see his son's face in Jagger? And he murmurs to himself that yes, he was indeed a very clever child. Meanwhile, Jagger swings right up in the air and lands the blow on Albert's face, to which Albert swings his sword and sends Jagger flying back to the ground. The scene shifts towards the stage where all the commanders are in shock, including the human form of Jagger's sword, and people in the arena cheer and scream in joy on Albert's victory. As Albert exhales after the fight, the king raises up from his seat and says to Albert that they won. But it feels like they lost, on which Albert agrees and says that it's true, although it wasn't dark, that's what he meant. Just then, loud running footsteps can be heard, and a servant reaches and bows before the king, saying that there is a big problem, and says that again, there is a murder case. The scene shifts to the city streets where Jagger greets his senior Saxon. Saxon confirms Jagger's arrival, which Jagger affirms, asking if it's here. Saxon says yes, and they both enter the crime scene. Upon entering, Jagger is shocked by the sight before him and says it's too blatant. He bends down to examine the body and says the weapon was a longsword. If that were the case, wouldn't it already be an assassination? Saxon replies that it's strange. However, the body is clean with no visible signs of resistance except for the sword wound, and all events so far are the same. Jagger thinks to himself that being attacked by the criminal without resistance, it was such a big difference in skill that he couldn't even defend himself. He says it's highly likely it was the work of his acquaintance. Saxon questions if it's an acquaintance of the victim and asks if it would be easy to assassinate an aristocrat without a trace in his office. Of course, there may be cases where the assassin is superior, but the probability is low. Jagger agrees with Saxene and asks if perhaps there is anyone he thinks might be a suspect. Saxene says that at first he thought it was Todris. However, Todris also had a victim at the same time, and even the crime tool and traces are the same. It's said that there is an inscription left that reads, "To cut down the warrior of doom." Jagger questions about Condemn, to which Saxon says he thinks they are probably trying to take advantage of the rumors that the warrior of doom is once again condemning the nobles. Hearing this, Jagger confusingly asks who's spreading such false rumors, to which Saxene, with a forced smile as he replays the face of Minerva, asks who Jagger thinks it is. He further thinks that, aside from the story, currently there is a faction among the noble forces that has not yet suffered any victims, and those are renegades, who withdrew their support. The scene shifts to the hallway where Saxon and Jagger arrive at Sir Jamie Alestro's office. Saxon knocks and asks permission to enter. The office door opens and Jamie Alestro asks what the matter is. He then notices Jagger behind Saxon and walks up to him saying, isn't he the warrior of doom and that the battle with Albert was really impressive? Jagger respectfully bows and says Jamie flatters him immensely. Saxon interrupts the two, asking Sir Jamie if they could end the greetings there, upon which Jamie invites them into the office. The three take a seat, and Jamie asks what business they came for. Saxon answers that two aristocrats were assassinated last night, both Pius's close associates and Todris's close associates. Jamie asks what it has to do with him, to which Saxon says that surely Jamie didn't know. While everyone else was dying, Jamie was the only one who survived, and he adds that the renegades like Jamie have withdrawn and betrayed their support. Jamie questions if he's the suspect now, to which Saxon replies coldly, then, is he not? Hearing this, Jamie loses his cool and curses out loud, saying that dead Jerk was just killed. Pius has changed. It means he is no longer the person he used to know. This triggers Saxon's anger, and he retaliates by warning Jamie to keep his mouth shut. That name is not something a traitor would utter. Thus, both bring out their swords and raise them towards each other. Just as they start to come closer to attack, Jagger jumps in the middle and swings his sword upon their swords to stop them, asking both to stop. Jagger asks Saxon if he really didn't mean to kill Jamie, did he? He asks Jamie the same thing and questions if he was just a puppet of Pius in the end. With that, he leaves the office. The scene shifts to Jagger's house where, upon reaching, he announces his arrival and is welcomed by Soie, Minerva, and Kitty, which takes Jagger by surprise. He asks if they were waiting for him, to which Soie replies that, nervously, that it wasn't like that she felt he was coming. Their attention goes towards Soie, who is acting grumpy, so Jagger inquires to Soie what the matter was with her. Soie replies that her sister must have been disappointed that she couldn't be of any help this time, which Soie quickly denies, saying it's not like that. If Jagger doesn't use the queen, that's what happens. Jagger teases Minerva by asking if she was disappointed, which she again denies it. Jagger suggests they all should go out after a long time, which all agree to excitedly and go out. They pass through some small alley filled with rats and beggars, on which Minerva asks why he always comes to that place. Jagger replies proudly that that's where they can see the true nature of the city and asks if they should go. The scene shifts to an underground drainage pathway where Jagger, Soie, and Jagger are walking along the side. As Minerva asks Jagger where they are headed, a knife suddenly flies toward him, but he effortlessly dodges it. Soie, alarmed, calls out to Jagger, who then sarcastically thanks the opposing gang members for such a warm greeting. One of the gang members, now angry, demands to know who they are. Jagger calmly replies that he's just there for information and asks where the guildmaster is. The opposing member, equipping a knife, dismisses Jagger's words, telling him to stop spouting nonsense and leave. Unfazed, Jagger reiterates that he's not here to fight. He only wants to meet the guildmaster. The opposing member, losing his patience, charges at Jagger with the knife, telling him to shut up. However, Jagger effortlessly stops the attack, throwing him to the ground with a loud attack. Witnessing this, two other members of the gang rush to attack, but are swiftly defeated by Jagger with just a few blows. Jagger taunts, asking if anyone else wants to fight, but before anyone can respond, a voice from behind interrupts, telling them to stop. A man steps forward and claims that he's not as easy to defeat as the others. He introduces the area, saying, "From the top of the castle to the depths of the underground water, he welcomes them to the Underground Guild, where all the information flows." He then introduces himself as Arthas, the leader of the Underground Guild. The scene shifts to Arthas's office, where they are seated. Arthas greets Jagger, asking how long it has been since they last met. Jagger responds that it's been 5 years since their trade at the Parthenon mansion. Arthas remarks that 5 years is enough to change a person, but Jagger lazily replies that he isn't sure if he's changed at all. Arthas, noting Jagger's nonchalance, asks how he can be so relaxed, just eating like that. Confused, Minerva asks if they should have asked permission before eating. Arthas quickly reassures her that it's fine, encouraging her to eat as much as she likes, as MC tells Arthas the real reason for his visit. He holds up a stack of papers and says he wants to buy information on the people listed. Arthas, intrigued, asks if it's really information about them, stating that Jagger likely knows them better than anyone. He continues, saying he's heard rumors that Jagger has taken down many people with his own hands. Jagger, unbothered, dismisses this as nonsense, but Arthas points out that many believe it, so there might be some truth to it. Arthas then reveals that the people Jagger is asking about are the dogs of the underworld, those involved in illegal activities like human trafficking and prostitution. He asks Jagger if, as the warrior of doom, he's aware of the horrors these people commit. Arthas continues, mentioning how petitions from the victims have been consistently rejected, hinting that someone powerful is behind this. The only person capable of such influence is none other than the trash prince, Fias Amelia. Arthas explains that Fias's presence signals doom for the weak, and then asks if Jagger understands the implications of defeating Albert Frederick. Jagger, suddenly furious, recalls something Sir Roches, the puppet, had said, and asks Arthas for his opinion on who the real mastermind behind everything is. Arthas suggests that if it's not Todris or Fias, then the true culprit is likely the third prince, known as the Wandering Prince, Frizz. Jagger thanks Arthas for the information and stands to leave. Arthas, somewhat surprised, asks if Jagger is leaving already. Jagger replies that now he knows how to move forward. As Jagger departs, a mysterious man with glowing green eyes approaches Arthas. He asks what his plan is now, hinting that they might be able to use the Warrior of Doom to his advantage. The person, however, states that Jagger is a threat to the country's future, and he intends to eliminate him tonight. The scene shifts to Jagger's room at the castle, where he is asleep. The person sneaks in through the balcony and quietly approaches Jagger, drawing his sword. Just as he strikes, his attack is intercepted by Roches. Roches commends Jagger, saying his instincts were spot on, as he had anticipated an assassination attempt that night. Jagger quickly counterattacks, catching the person off guard. As the fight continues, Jagger notes that he has a shallow sense of cutting but is skilled with a sword. Roches warns him to surrender, stating that escape is impossible. In response, the person leaps out of the window and disappears into the night. Frustrated at the missed opportunity, Roches orders the guards to catch the culprit. As the commotion dies down, Jagger notices some threads lying on the balcony. He picks them up and, deep in thought, realizes he might have just found a critical clue as he's finally caught the trail leading to the truth. The scene shifts to a hallway where a female police officer, Raina, knocks on a door, announcing herself and asking for permission to enter. Once inside, she is welcomed by Princess Laurelai, who inquires about what happened. Raina apologizes, but the princess reassures her that it's okay and asks if she's feeling well. As Raina begins to reply that she's fine, the door suddenly bursts open and Jagger storms in, thanking Raina for her guidance. Raina, now angry, warns Jagger, reminding him that this is the princess's chamber, and that no matter his status as a knight, such rudeness is punishable. Ignoring her scolding, Jagger addresses the princess, saying they need to discuss the murder cases. He adds that he had originally suspected Tawdris, Pius, or even the Wandering Prince, but now believes it was someone else entirely. The real culprit is Princess Laurelai herself, the so-called Tangnyeou. Laurelai remains calm and asks if Jagger has any proof. Jagger pulls out some threads and explains that they were found on him after his fight with an assassin. He points out that these threads are made of the same material as the royal guard's clothing. Though he admits that alone isn't enough evidence, he adds that the saber-toothed tiger's sense of smell is far superior to a tracking dog's, and one thread was all it took for him to find the truth. Enraged, Raina draws her sword and curses Jagger, demanding if he realized the gravity of the situation. Before she can act, Laurelai orders her to stand down. Despite Raina's resistance, Princess Laurelai calmly asks Jagger if he's uncomfortable talking while standing and offers him a seat. Jagger agrees, and once they're both seated, he gets straight to the point. Why did Laurelai start assassinating nobles? What did she have to gain from it? Laurelai calmly replies that the nobles were villains who deserved to die. Jagger acknowledges this but presses her on why she took action when there was no apparent personal gain. Laurelai elaborates, explaining that as her wedding day approached, Tawdris and Pius were planning to sell her off to aristocrats. She didn't care how corrupt or old they were, but if someone only sought power by using her, that was unacceptable. When MC asked if the king turned a blind eye to this, Laurelai explained that in this world, strength is everything. The strong hold all the power, and someone as weak as her couldn't expect the king's help. So she took matters into her own hands. By donning a dress she detested and wearing a peculiar smile, she earned the label of Emilia's Tangnyeou, allowing her to escape the clutches of the nobles. Jagger asks what any of this has to do with the murders. Laurelai recalls a time when MC had told her that if she didn't like something, leaving might be the best solution. Laurelai replies that since she couldn't leave, she decided to transform the world around her into a place where she could survive. She goes on to explain that when she introduced Freezered Olivani, the nobles who opposed him were met with disbelief. With the support of incoming nobility, they were able to deal with the corrupt aristocrats. Jagger interrupts her, questioning if she's romanticizing her actions, pointing out that in the end, it was all for her own survival. Laurelai admits that she can't deny that. Suddenly, she gets up from her seat and kneels in front of Jagger. Taken aback, Jagger asks what she's doing. Laurelai, with a serious expression, confesses that while her actions may have started as a way to survive, she is now genuinely concerned for the country and its people. Raina, alarmed, tries to intervene, but Laurelai stops her. Looking up at Jagger, Laurelai pleads, saying she doesn't ask for much. If Jagger could turn a blind eye just this once, she would do anything. Jagger, intrigued, gently holds Laurelai's face and asks if she truly means anything. Laurelai solemnly confirms this. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoes from the hallway. Roaches bursts into the room, ordering the guards to halt. As to see Raina lunges at Jagger, but he swiftly blocks her attack. Jagger taunts Roaches, saying that he arrived later than expected, to which Roaches replies that Jagger acted faster than anticipated. Roaches then declares that they will take it from here and announces the arrest of both Royal Guard Raina and Princess Laurelai Emilia on charges of injuring an aristocrat. As Jagger approaches the investigation room, he is stopped as the guard asks what he is coming here for, to which Jagger replies that it's just for a simple meeting. The guard states that he's not allowed to have a lengthy talk and tells him he may enter. As Jagger enters, he sees Laurelai sitting in the room full of darkness. Laurelai asks why he is there and if he has come to laugh at her. Jagger says that's not the reason, and that he is here because he has an offer. He then whispers something into Laurelai's ear. The scene shifts, and Jagger is exchanging blows with Mr. Frederick. Frederick grabs Jagger's arm and rotates him to strike from behind. Jagger falls, and Mr. Frederick comments that Jagger's swordsmanship is a way to compensate for the lack of mana through refined and efficient movements. However, it seems Jagger's mana is significantly lower than others, so this method might not be as powerful for him. Jagger agrees, saying that's correct, which is why he's working hard on learning Brother Drake's fighting method. He explains he doesn't plan on abandoning his own approach, but appreciates the fusion of Brother Drake's technique. As Mr. Frederick laughs, Jagger says sparring with him is fine, but there is something he needs to say. Mr. Frederick mentions that he has a story about Drake. In the past, Drake headbutted his father, and Frederick scolded him, saying that such behavior was beneath his dignity. He questioned how Drake could call himself a knight of Frederick with that kind of behavior. Drake responded that dignity doesn't matter in a fight. Only winning does. Frederick got angry and asked what Drake was thinking when he left the family. Drake said it was sufficient for him and asked if he should take Shadow, just as promised. Frederick believes Drake died protecting Jagger and inherited his will. Seeing Drake's illusion in Jagger, Frederick says it's enough and that Drake's will has already been fulfilled. Frederick tells Jagger they should talk about the wish he wants granted if he wins the bet. He asks Jagger what he desires, saying he will gladly grant it, even if it means working under His Majesty Pius. Jagger replies that it's not time yet, and that he will decide everything at the gathering of power-blinded and hungry hounds. The scene shifts as Pius asks Jagger if he's made his decision. He mentions the privilege of having a wish granted through his deal with Albert, and wonders if it can be used to support him. Jagger asks if there are any other matters to resolve first, and reminds Pius that he needs to give him a reward for completing his commission. Pius asks what Jagger wants. Reconstruction of the family or wealth equivalent to that, as he never thought the case would be solved. Jagger says he only has one thing in mind, glaring at Pius. He wants to stop all the weapon best store deals in the Amelia Kingdom. Pius, furious, asks what Jagger means. Pius explains that the Argo family holds power over weapon distribution across the continent, but Jagger states that they were the ones who sent the machinery to assassinate him. He is sure Pius is aware of their creed. Pius, thinking over the situation, wonders what Jagger is planning by wanting to get rid of the weapon best. He agrees, saying that a contract is still a contract, and he will try his best. However, Pius thinks to himself that he will deal with it later when the time comes. Jagger asks for another request, but as he's about to say more, Pius interrupts, telling the condemnation hero that getting rid of the weapon best is already crossing the line. He asks if there's anything else Jagger wants. Jagger asks if it's necessary to end the War of the Throne. There is something else he needs. He heard that Laurelai Amelia's trial is going to be held in 3 days, and asks Pius to gather all the nobles of New Temion there, believing that the stage for the throne should be as glorious as possible. Pius smiles creepily, stating that he can finally defeat Brother Todris and sit on the throne. He believes that once he becomes king, the weapon business will be nothing. Standing up, Pius says he's made his decision and will grant what Jagger wants. He also says that once he becomes king, there's nothing he can't do. Until then, Jagger can rest. From behind, Minerva asks if he's done, and Jagger agrees. Minerva remarks that it was quite a lengthy conversation and comments that Pius is really a bad person, hiding his malicious intentions behind kind acts. Jagger agrees, saying Minerva has better insight than he thought. Soie asks if Jagger really intends to do what he said, or if he has other plans. Jagger answers that it wouldn't be fun if he told them, which annoys the two girls. Jagger smiles, saying that when the actors enter the stage, the story of those who dragged him into this mess will come to an end. As the soldiers are raiding the weapon shop, Kevin asks, "What on earth are they going to do?" Roaches responds that he's in the middle of official duties and asks Kevin to refrain from speaking, as they are conducting an investigation on multiple charges. He warns that if Kevin obstructs, additional charges will be added. Kevin screams to know what the hell are these charges. Just then, the head, Count Argo, enters, saying that if something like this had happened, they should have informed him first. He wonders if the support was not to their liking, to Prince Pius. Count Argo says, even if there was some disappointment, isn't this a bit excessive? Pius apologizes, but clarifies that this time, it's not just a routine tax investigation. A weapon empire has spread throughout all of Emilia, and orders for dismantling have been issued for all those locations, shocking Count Argo. Kevin screams if they are planning to expel weapons from this country. Pius responds, stating that tax evasion, illegal fund circulation, and even bribery allegations are enough reasons for the investigation. Kevin screams that those were sponsorship funds dedicated to him. With that, he adds, the withdrawal of weapons is unacceptable. Pius comments, if they didn't also receive the same scholarship from Prince Tadris? He explains that they are in the middle of a tightrope walk, determining who will become the king, and there are more allegations, such as exploitation and fraud against different races. Is that also denied? Pius notes that it's a well-known fact that the weapons business has grown by exploiting others. Pius then asks Lord Argo what he thinks for Count. Argo replies that merchants have their own survival methods. Pius retorts, if that's so, then what about the attempted assassination of the hero? Kevin bites his tongue. Pius explains that the Raven Missionary Corps, composed of SS-class missionaries, leaves no survivors in the missions they undertake, especially the leader, Mark Blentier, who is skilled enough to take on an entire army alone. Sending someone like that to assassinate the hero of Emilia, and if he hadn't covered up the incident, all of them would have been apprehended. Count Argo agrees, but expresses concern that by pressuring them like this, they might consider inviting Lord Tadris. Pius dismisses the concern, saying that's not the issue, as war is coming and the news will spread soon. Kevin screams, calling this nonsense, adding that Lord Pius's influence is weaker than Lord Tadris's. Count Argo asks his men to quietly take Kevin to a secluded place, to which his subordinate abides. As Kevin screams for a moment to be given a chance, Count Argo apologizes to Prince Pius, explaining that Kevin was just expressing frustration and asking Pius to consider it a sincere apology. Pius, considering the apology, forgives him and asks him not to dwell too much on this incident. Once he becomes king, everything will return to its rightful state. The scene shifts as Count Argo asks his son he's once again showing a disappointing side, stating that they are knights, not murderers who use assassins. Kevin asks if he did anything wrong by disrespecting the king and wanting to punish the scandalous one who stole the goods. Count Argo says that what the condemnation hero did was an assault on them, but it was his own fault for not confirming that the merchandise was a cursed sword. He concludes that doing business with him may not be suitable, and cries out, saying he just wanted to be recognized by his father. His subordinate tries to console him, saying that the Supreme Lord did this out of love for him. Kevin curses the hero the cursed sword and everything, blaming it all on them. He vows that this won't end here. Kevin asks his subordinate if they have another cursed sword. The subordinate directs him to a chained sword as he hesitates, warning that if things go wrong, Kevin will be in trouble. Kevin dismisses the concern, demanding they proceed quickly. He orders the subordinate to hand the cursed sword to a suitable missionary and to call someone over. He explains that they will argue, and in the end, the missionary will be defeated. Sacrifices will be inevitable, but once the cursed sword is sealed, it will be over. The subordinate warns that without the guardian gloves, someone might get possessed, so he asks the younger members to stay back. But as the cursed sword beckons, Kevin draws near. The sword promises to grant him the power to consume everything and fulfill all his desires. The subordinate tries to stop him, but Kevin wields the sword. The sword promises to fulfill all his desires until death claims him. As Kevin gets possessed, he is urged to kill, long for power, and consume everything. Kevin, confused, wonders what has happened. Suddenly, a girl is summoned out, introducing herself as Artemis, the Sword of Desire. She declares that she will be with him until he turns to ashes, as Kevin bows down. As Laurelai and Raina are dragged out into the streets, Roaches announces that for the past few months, someone impersonating the Condemnation hero has been spreading fear in New Temian City, and the culprit behind the noble serial murders has finally been revealed. The perpetrator is none other than the royal guard, Reina Similio. As Raina curses them, saying they know why the princess did and why. It is then announced that the mastermind is Princess Laurelai Emilia. Laurelai thinks that she has no regrets about being in Reina, and using the Condemnation hero were all things she did for herself. But as she ponders, a girl appears before her, offering flowers. Laurelai cries out, realizing that she was right. The people are praying for the princess as she wanted to protect them. Laurelai smiles, thankful for the people's support. Just as she is about to accept the flowers, a soldier crushes them with his weapon, and Roaches states it's time to depart. Laurelai thinks that under these circumstances, she cannot step back. Her fate, as well as the future of the people of this kingdom, she entrusts to Signature Jagger. When they are presented before the king, the nobles vote that Prince Todris should become the new king. However, they believe the authors don't know the current trend, which favors Pius. Rumors suggest that not only the Condemnation hero, but even the warrior Albert has aligned himself with Pius. That's why Prince Todris sits with a strained expression on his face. The king silences them, asking Laurelai why she has caused such an interesting incident. Laurelai replies that it was merely about cleaning up the pests who defy the country. She adds that killing corrupt nobles who betray the kingdom is a service, and if it's for the people, she is willing to commit multiple murders. From behind, Pius interrupts, saying she's just a murderer. He claims that if he hadn't solved the case, more victims would have followed, and Princess Emilia's reputation would have been tarnished. Pius seeks public opinion, and the nobles agree to condemn the noble murders and praise Pius. Pius, feeling delighted by the cheers as he enjoys them as with his achievements, asks the people to witness his might. Shout that he is the true ruler, worthy of the throne. He recalls a moment from his childhood when his mother consoled him after he cried. He had asked why he couldn't even share a meal with his brother and if it was because of his hair color. His mother told him to seek the king's, the majesty's words. The strong have everything, and Pius agreed. From that moment on, Pius decided that if he wanted something, he had to become strong enough to claim it. Pius turns to Jagger and asks, what are his thoughts? He has heard that he has something to say about this case. Jagger agrees, responding that he has an important story to tell everyone. Pius thinks that he is keeping his promise, and with Albert by his side, loyal to him in this position, Jagger walks forward. As he approaches, Pius shivers, unsettled by Jagger's creepy smile. Jagger points at Todris and Pius and declares, Todris Emilia and Pius Emilia, these men are the damned pastors that will never exist in this world again. The entire crowd falls silent for a moment before the nobles begin screaming and cursing at Jagger. They ask if he thinks he's fearless just because he's been hailed as a hero. The king silences them and asks Jagger to continue. Jagger then reveals a list of the victims of the recent murders and the nobles who were targeted for future killings. Among them, Hanswin had kidnapped and forced women in his territory into prostitution, and Ophelia Whitro had implemented usury among the residents, selling them to human trafficking organizations. Jagger adds that these criminals had one thing in common. A percentage of their earnings was used to cover up their crimes. Isn't that right? He asks the Todris. He goes on to say that princes led corruption, and the princess eradicated it. Who then is responsible for tarnishing Emilia's honor? Payas shouts that it's all a conspiracy and that insulting the royalty of their nation like this is unforgivable, while Tadris insists that the princess simply committed murder and there are no witnesses to prove her innocence. But then Albert interrupts, asking, "Do they need a witness?" As he speaks, the nearby nobles are shocked. Albert directs their attention to the noise outside. The people are screaming for the release of the princess, hailing her name. Jagger says, "These people have gathered to prove the princess's innocence." Do she remember what he said? Laurelai was confused as she asked, "What does that mean?" Jagger responds, "Ascend to the throne." He tells Laurelai that it's her responsibility to carry this burden and ascend to the throne. That's the price she will pay for her sins. In the present, Laurelai asks, "Could it be that he is behind all of this?" Albert steps in and declares that from now on they pledge to protect Princess Laurelai Emilia. He swears it. Laurelai, still hesitant, asks, "Why? I'm just a murderer, that's all." But Albert and the others continue to call for her, hailing her as their princess. Jagger bows before Princess Laurelai, and touched by the support, she smiles. The king approaches her and tells her that she no longer needs to be afraid, to which she complies. The king then says, "A king doesn't need to be exceptional, nor does he have to be the eldest son, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a man. However, the king must be strong." As with the cheers of the people and the king crowning her, he states that it seems that she is the strongest among them. Laurelai Emilia is the first queen of Emilia. After some time, as Laurelai moves comfortably around, crowned as queen, she remembers that the king must be strong. She must become the sun that rises above everyone and looks down on the world. When withering people pray toward the sun to uphold the kingdom, they must turn a blind eye to certain discontent. The stronger one becomes, the lonelier one will be. Not to forget, under the king's throne, there is always flowing blood. King Winston asks his daughter if she can become such a being. But Laurelai declines, saying that in Emilia, which she rules, blood will not flow. If her father is a sun shining from above, she will raise him from the depths. As she prepares to be the sun, King Winston asks if she can prove it, to which she agrees, asking him to please watch over her for the future of Emilia as she is crowned. In the present, Reyna enters to say that it is time. Laurelai jokingly asks how she looks and if she appears okay, to which Reyna replies that she truly is the son of Emilia. Laurelai warns that if they do not hurry, they might miss it because it's that person. Reyna adds that if it's that person, he will probably be leaving. Laurelai feels touched thinking about Jagger, who, along with others, is outside preparing to leave. Jagger asks if everything is packed, and since the work is done, they must move as planned. Soie inquires why they are leaving in such a hurry, to which Jagger responds that he's trying to avoid getting involved in troublesome matters. Soie asks why he is acting like this again, and then turns to Minerva, asking if she is going to just stay like that as they move out. Jagger encounters the princess, who asks if he plans to leave without even saying goodbye. She insists that it is not time yet. Taking the crown, she states that they still have to hold the coronation ceremony properly. Sometimes she wonders what will happen if this crown becomes too heavy for her. She also expresses a desire to be free like him. Jagger finds this absolutely ridiculous, reminding her that she started this, so she must take responsibility until the end. This makes Reyna angry, asking how he could be so impolite to the princess. Laurelai assures them that it is okay, but asks Jagger to please take responsibility as well. Jagger questions what this means, and Laurelai replies that she followed him because she admired him for condemning the corrupt nobles. Therefore, he too must take responsibility for what he started. Jagger bluntly states that he will take responsibility, which embarrasses Laurelai. He adds that if she changes, he will come back to condemn her, to which Laurelai says she understands. As she gives him a letter, she asks if he is in the middle of completing the quest to Sigman. She took on the quest to Carbon, but she did not think he would be paid for it. Jagger mentions that he is careful not to inquire about debts. In any case, he will accept it gratefully. Laurelai offers to give him more than he asked for, but Jagger feels creepy vibes around her as Soie and Minerva stare at her. Laurelai screams that it is nothing. Jagger reflects upon Laurelai, stating that this is bland, and her haircut suits her well, which embarrasses the princess. She falls, smiling at Jagger as he walks down. Jagger asks Minerva if she has been in a bad mood since morning. Minerva cries out, asking why he always fights with Soie and leaves her out. Jagger questions if she will stop, and Soie informs Jagger to understand that the dark swords are always connected to those with whom they share a bond. If they separate from Jagger, they feel anxious and lonely. In other words, her sister is lonely. Minerva cries out that it is a lie, insisting she is just feeling frustrated. Jagger comments that she has some cute aspects as well, patting her on the back and telling her that if she feels lonely, she should tell him. Soie and the others come in, asking for a hug and stating that they feel lonely, so they will be with her. As Jagger and company leave out as Minerva shouts, saying not to misunderstand, she is just by his side because she can eat for free, which is why she sticks around, but Minerva bumps into Jagger, and she asks why he suddenly stopped. Jagger realizes that this quest is related to the Car Isnabels. Soie mentions that if it is Car the one who found her, should he at least greet them? Jagger advises that it is better not to, saying that Bud Dad is a creepy one. The scene shifts to the battlefield, where a girl ensures that the preparations are done as the person walks among the corpses of numerous people. He states that they shall go for justice, and Jagger comments that he is totally crazy. The scene shifts as Carr confronts Viscount Philip James, declaring that he has committed a sin by immersing himself in magic and conducting experiments on the realm's inhabitants. Carr, the warrior of justice, proclaims that he will execute him. Count Philip laughs, saying that it is ridiculous. He asks Carr comments about its ridicules and if he truly thinks that the 5 great heroes would protect him, as he injects something into his lackey. The bulky person transforms and evolves into something monstrous, unleashing upon Carr as he crushes the ground with his punch. Count Philip then orders the beast to go forth and show his true strength to the hero who dares to invade his territory. As the mutant dashes towards Carr to slice him, Carr, using his spear skills, easily penetrates him. Seeing this, scared Count Philip attempts to flee, but Carr throws his spear to blast him away. The victim people hail the warrior of justice, claiming he has come to save them. However, they soon realize that the hero of justice is slashing at them. One victim screams, asking why he is doing this to them, as they are just the victims of Philip James's experiments. Carr responds that he knows this, but all of this happened because of their weakness. As he kills the last victim, he declares that being weak is a sin, and that he is the one who punishes sinners because he is the warrior of justice above all. In such tragic events, there should be no survivors so that he stands out. As Carr, the warrior of justice, surveys the scene, a girl comes in, asking if he is okay. Carr replies that he is fine, calling her hybrid, and asks if she is okay. She thanks him for asking. Carr notes that there seem to be no survivors after all, and he mentions that by the time he discovered it, it was nothing but a tragic accident. It's sad, but he believes justice is built upon restoration, which Hybrid affirms, abiding by it. Carr suggests that since they have wrapped up the incident, they should try the new quest, and Hybrid excitedly agrees. The scene shifts as Jagger asks the merchant to change something, but the merchant declines. Minerva tries to convince him, insisting that it must be stopped, claiming that Jagger is so wicked that if he doesn't listen, he won't let him live in peace. The merchant explains that the princess suddenly assigned a request to the water, and it was an urgent situation, so they had to make it hastily, making it hard to remove. Jagger holds up Minerva and Soie, saying to look at these kids. They are like his younger sisters, making both of them feel embarrassed to be close to Jagger. Jagger states that in a pre-Vilas journey, like an S-class quest, it wouldn't be nice to take the kids along. The merchant asks him to try changing his perspective. Carbon, the sacred nation, is home to elves and dwarves, a land of harpies and ogres. It was under colonial rule for centuries and achieved independence just 5 years ago, with resources from around the world heading to this place. Jagger should see this as an opportunity for his precious younger sisters to experience the cultures of the entire land. Moreover, there is only one quest around here that leads to Toria Zan, and he has no intentions of changing it. Minerva suggests to Jagger that it won't work and asks how about just sticking with it. But Jagger replies that it is not possible. That kid must be avoided at all costs. From behind, Carr enters and asks if that is the warrior of doom. As Carr is cheered and hailed as the warrior of justice, Jagger realizes that he should have avoided this situation. Minerva flicks him, teasing him about being jealous. Carr asks Jagger if he has not seen him for a long time, to which Jagger replies that he has been living quite well all this time. Hybrid screams at Jagger, saying that even if he is one of the 5 great warriors, what kind of nonsense is he spouting to Carr right now? Carr then asks Hybrid she is butting into the conversation with an old friend, to which she happily stops. Jagger thinks to himself that he didn't want to get involved, but somehow he wants to send these tiger kids back to where they originally lived. He wonders if this is the first time such a situation has arisen. The merchant assures him that he has planned very well, and with the 5 great warriors by their side, there is absolutely nothing to worry about. However, the fact is that lately, a group of thieves has started causing trouble around his neighborhood. Jagger realizes that this is the reason for the lack of quests. He adds that the warriors are guarding something he can't even imagine, and that this is really going to be a comfortable ride. The scene shifts to Jagger with his party guarding the carriage. Minerva comments that it's strange, no matter how one looks at it. Soie asks what's wrong, to which Minerva replies that it's about Jagger. She mentions that ever since meeting that person named Carr, his condition has been like this, and he doesn't respond even when she calls him. Soie runs towards Jagger, asking if he is having trouble because of the one called Carr. Jagger declines, saying that it's not like that, he just has some things to think about. As he recalls a confrontation between himself and Carr, Jagger excuses that it's nothing and not to worry. The scene shifts as they walk along the snow-covered path. Minerva sniffles and screams that it's so cold, prompting Jagger to scold her. He reminds her that he told her to change her clothes and points out that Soie is living without saying anything. Soie smiles, explaining that it's because of her peculiar nature. Jagger insists that Minerva wear a coat, telling her to stop whining and put it on. Minerva thanks Jagger, saying that after all, he is a servant of her body. Jagger asks her to stop talking nonsense and come quietly. As they reach the carbon borders of the neutral zone, the atmosphere is quite pleasant, and the adventurers are enjoying themselves. Minerva states that she feels alive and asks if this is the place called Carbon. Jagger responds that no, this is a new neutral zone near the border. Carbon's sacred kingdom is a country established by races that were persecuted by humans. Elves, dwarves, harpies, orcs, werewolves, and other races make up the majority, and they have maintained a state of caution for hundreds of years to ensure they never live as slaves to humans again. Minerva remarks that those humans only do bad things, to which a dwarf nearby responds that someday countless races will be able to cross the continent. Jagger and the party think it is strange that he suddenly joined in. The dwarf continues, stating that His Majesty King Dimitri, the King of Carbon, has made great efforts for a world where their races are not discriminated against. Thanks to his hard work, they have begun trading with foreign countries. As Carr arrives, he calls the dwarf Genon, saying it's good to be positive, but he never mentioned the negative aspects. He points out that thanks to him, lawless territories like this, without taxes and lords, have also been created. Jagger asks if they don't have a separate table, but Carr explains that all the seats are full. Instead, he offers to serve them the meal, making Soie and Minerva drool. Carr adds that the sauce is flowing and juicy, making it a perfect meal to soothe their fatigue. Minerva eagerly attacks the food, saying she will eat well and enjoy it, but a person comes in flying, throwing away all the food, causing her to cry. Jagger tells her to wait and see. An adventurer, Turadin, comments that these strong guys are going to break their backs. Turadin apologizes, saying he ruined their meal. Jagger asks if he will ask for another meal, but Turadin declines. Jagger punches him down, sending him flying through the walls. The surrounding adventurers call him leader, asking what he did. Turadin, bewildered, asks what the hell is he doing, as Jagger throws his sword at him, asking if he will request another meal. Turadin hands him a gold pouch, saying that's all he has. Carr then chimes in, saying that it's not enough. Jagger tells him to wait a minute, but Carr approaches the adventurer, declaring that any true hero should not have compassion for villains. He summons his spear to attack the adventurer, who pleads for his life, saying he already gave him the money. Carr responds by cutting off his arm. While leaving with his subordinates, Turadin asks for Carr's name, but Carr states that there is no need to tell a villain his name. Jagger steps in, introducing Carr and revealing his name to the adventurer. Carr glares at Jagger as the adventurers recognize him as Carr Isnable, the hero of justice. Turadin comments that he won't forgive him, prompting Jagger to think that for someone who blurts out such words, he had been quite quiet for a few weeks. Carr asserts that 2 of the 5 great heroes are escorting him, and the adventurer must not even dare to think about an attack. Jagger then asks why Carr caused the accident and why she is implicating it on him. On their way, Turadin screams that he had been waiting for Carr and that he told him he wouldn't forget him. Meanwhile, a mage beside him casts a spell of fire. Turadin declares that as a greeting, he prays that Carr goes to hell. The mage fires the spell upon the dam, creating a blast that sends water flowing toward the cavern. As the huge flow of water rushes toward the carriage, Jagger screams to the people that they need to leave this place right now. Carr urges them to take only the essentials and abandon the carriage. Jagger turns to the merchant and warns him that if he doesn't move right away, he will die. The merchant declines, arguing that running away and abandoning the mission is a shame and disgrace to a merchant. He would rather face death with his goods than abandon them. Jagger curses under his teeth, thinking that if the merchant dies, he won't receive any compensation. Determined to handle the situation, Jagger prepares to act. The merchant asks what plan Jagger has, to which the Carr comments that Jagger is being both brave and stubborn. He questions whether Jagger thinks he can stop the oncoming flood alone. Jagger summons Soie, leaving Carr taken aback, wondering if it could be magic, as Jagger uses Soie's unique skill, the Spirit of God, to freeze the incoming rush of water in place. The people around him gasp in shock, including Carr. Carr compliments Jagger on his freezing magic power, expressing surprise at the strength he didn't think he possessed. Jagger curses himself for being caught using the cursed sword, thinking that this is not the time to worry about it. Carr then asks if the power was obtained through unfair means, warning that he will execute him immediately. However, the merchant interrupts to compliment Jagger, stating how amazing he is, as he never thought that a hero of condemnation would possess magic powers. He thanks Jagger for saving his life. Jagger reassures him, urging him to take his belongings and run away immediately. The merchant asks if the hero has stopped the flood, but Jagger points out the people who are about to attack them. The merchant curses as he tries to run away. Carr reminds them that, as he said, the situation is not favorable, and they will talk later. Jagger responds that instead of wasting time on unnecessary chatter, they need to handle what he has caused properly. Turadin asks questions about why they only kept the carriage and threw away everything else behind. He signals the mage, who begins casting a spell upon the carriage. Jagger notices this and uses his explosive step to reach the spot, slicing the spell in two. Suddenly, a person wrapped in a blanket falls from the carriage. Jagger catches her and asks if she is hurt. Upon seeing her hair and face, Jagger thinks she looks like she has expensive jewelry, luxury cosmetics, and a scent of fine perfume. The girl affirms that she's fine. Realizing that she is an elf, Jagger thinks she seems like a noble from Carbon. He comments that he just did what he had to do, contemplating whether she was hiding her identity to avoid being targeted. The pursuers soon recognize that she is an elf and think that if they capture her, they will make a fortune. One of them comments that they say elves are the most valuable these days. As Jagger shivers from the recoil, Jagger realizes that he has no mana left due to using consecutive skills and techniques. His body is exhausted, and he can't use the cursed sword because of the elf. Coming to a realization, he decides there is no other way and runs away while carrying the elf. The pursuers curse Jagger, ordering their men to catch him, but a sudden attack blocks their way. Carr remarks that if the hero of Condemnation can't handle something like this and tries to escape by leaving the battlefield, he has overestimated him. After dealing with the attackers, the merchant tells the elf that he will escort her, the noble guest, this way. The elf peeks at Jagger, thanking him for his help. Jagger replies that it's nothing, but just then, Soie comes running, calling out to him, asking if he is safe. Jagger assures her that they are safe as well. Soie confirms that the cat protected them, while Minerva adds that the cat took care of the fools who attacked her. Jagger states that he has confirmed that everyone is safe and asks if they should move again to Toriagen. Toriagen is the capital city of the Sacred Kingdom of Carbon, a nation established by persecuted races at the northernmost part of the continent. Despite the attacks from demon gods and dragon invasions, Toriagen has never faltered or given up its quest for survival. One must obtain permission from the local authorities to enter, and Jagger is surprised by the scene of the city. Soie comments that they have finally arrived. As Jagger pats them on her, he acknowledges their excitement, but urges them to calm down, reminding them not to shoot around recklessly and to behave, especially since most of the Carbon race are hostile toward humans. However, Minerva runs off, making Jagger angry. Minerva points out a large creature, saying it is so huge, while another one is small, and then she comments that the other one is fluffy, touching it and saying it feels good and is more adorable than a cat's tail. The wolf stares at her, asking what she thinks she is doing, daring to mess around with a human subject so carelessly. Minerva, undeterred, replies that the wolf looks like a foolish puppy and warns him to remember who her servant is, the infamous Condemnation hero. If he doesn't want a sleepless night, he better not touch that tail. The wolf becomes hostile, questioning who the hell he is. Jagger explains that the title of Condemnation Hero is mostly a symbol of fear limited to the Emilia Kingdom. The wolf comments that it's quite a grand title for insignificant humans like them, ordering them to stop babbling and get out of the way. He pushes Soie aside, but Jagger barely saves her, asking if she's safe. Jagger then tells the wolf that he understands his dislike for humans, but he can't just go around touching them without permission. The wolf curses him, screaming that it has always been the humans who touched and provoked them first, and this time they took away their children. Jagger replies that he doesn't know what the wolf is talking about. However, the moment he draws his weapon, it will no longer be a mere fight but a battle. As he unsheathes his blade, the wolf senses the aura emanating from it and questions how he can emit such a level of aura. The wolf charges at Jagger, who readies his sword, but just as they are about to clash, a huge figure comes between them, crushing the ground to stop the confrontation. Gwenon, the dwarf, says that enough is enough and that there seems to have been a misunderstanding between them. Jagger realizes that this is the dwarf that was with Carr. The wolf questions why Gwenon is protecting the humans, calling him by his name. Gwenon explains that he is a person with a verified identity and asks the wolf to consider them as his guests and just move on. The wolf frowns but eventually steps back, warning the humans not to play around in carbon. The moment they let their guard down, countless fangs will tear them apart. Jagger notes that this is quite a harsh and furious greeting, to which Gwenon responds that he wants to clarify things and introduce himself properly. He states that he is Gwenon, the leader of the Stone Guild and a comrade of the Hero of Justice. He explains that these days, the human trafficking organization is quite active, so everyone is sensitive to humans standing out too much in Toriagen, where sentiments toward them are not good. It looks like they need a local guide. As the scene shifts to the past, Gwenon is surprised that the Condemnation hero is a user of the Dark Spirit. Carr confirms this, asking Gwenon to keep an eye on him while in carbon. Hybrid comments that even if Jagger wields a cursed sword, he might go crazy. Carr adds that his eyes cannot be deceived. That was definitely the cursed sword, and he doesn't know how Jagger can hold it and still maintain his sanity. Gwenon explains that even if he wields the cursed sword, there are variations in how individuals are dominated. Carr states that the moment Jagger falls under the sword's control, he will subdue him. It's regrettable and shameful, but for the sake of justice, there is no other choice. Gwenon agrees to investigate the cursed sword further, and as Kerr mentions that he will also look into it with Hybrid, he asks Gwenon to watch over them and the sentiment of the Hero of Justice in the present. In the present, Gwenon remarks that it was fate they met like this and suggests they stay at his home to save on expenses. Minerva chimes in, saying he is a noble dwarf who knows how to treat guests. Soie expresses gratitude, asking if it's really okay. Jagger insists they are fine and doesn't want to be a burden. He is cautious about accepting hasty kindness and favors. Minerva screams that if this is the case, won't they end up going to a cheap hotel? Soie reassures Jagger, saying it's fine, but she thinks the cats need a bath as they are just waiting in the corner. Jagger frowns and finally concedes that they will stay for just one day. Gwenon commends Jagger for making a good choice and suggests they leave behind any accumulated grudges. Jagger then asks Soie if she wants someone to carry her, making her embarrassed. Minerva, thinking that walking is a hassle, adds that she doesn't want to walk because she is afraid the wolf will dirty her clothes. Jagger thanks Gwenon for the invitation and asks if he has a drainage system at his home. Gwenon chuckles, wondering what they think of him, assuring them they even have bubbles in the hot water. Just then, Minerva trips and falls, exclaiming where she can find a dirty-looking servant to carry her. In a moment of pause, Jagger says they are trying to watch their cats. Gwenon mentions that if he can bring in a spirit to his house, it would be an honor. Minerva, feeling ignored, bites Jagger, insisting that she wants to be carried too. Jagger screams at her to stop talking so much, just walk, and not bite him. He then asks Soie to stop laughing and help him with this. Jagger asks Gwenon if they aren't leaving yet. Gwenon replies that he will be there soon, thinking that if Jagger is really a user of the cursed sword, this would be the Gwenon as bringing a time bomb into the house. He realizes that the hero of condemnation might be a man more dangerous than they thought. He hasn't told Carr before, but there is another way to use the cursed sword without going insane, and that is if the signature Jagger is a demon. Upon reaching the place, Jagger says that he heard earlier that Gwenon is the leader of the Stone Guild and asks if he is the leader of the clan. Gwenon replies that it's an honorary position and that he's just an ordinary dwarf. As he opens the door, he welcomes them to the territory of the Stone Clan. Jagger inquires if all the dwarves live underground, to which Gwenon responds that it's a tradition passed down for generations, and by the way, he doesn't even know how many tunnels like this exist. As he knocks on the door, calling out, "Darling," and for Ares, announcing her daddy is here. A girl responds that he has been through a lot. Jagger compliments Gwenon, saying that his daughter is cute, to which Gwenon clarifies that she's not his daughter, she's his wife. Jagger is quite confused. Gwenon observes that it seems like it's the first time he has seen a small dwarf, although she may look young from a human perspective. According to dwarves, she's definitely an adult. Behind her, a little girl appears and asks who is there. Seeing this, Gwenon runs toward Eris and hugs her, introducing his daughter and exclaiming that she is the cutest in the world and that his darling Aris has grown so much. He asks if he shouldn't give her a hug. Aris tells him to shave first and then come back. Gwenon laughs, saying that this is his daughter Aris, and asks how she is, mentioning that she is indeed cute as Aris introduces herself. Minerva greets her, and Soie expresses that she's glad to meet her. Gwenon senses something from the bell as he moves upstairs, stating that it's impolite to leave guests waiting, so let him show them the room they will be using. As he opens the door upstairs, he announces that they can use this room. Minerva runs out, exclaiming that it's a bed and a proper one at that. Jagger thanks Gwenon, saying he will make sure to use it quietly. Gwenon urges them to consider it his own home and feel comfortable. After leaving, Jagger comments that Gwenon still likes to exercise caution. Soie reminds him that this is the capital of the country and that there should be some concerns. Jagger asks Minerva not to be so happy or get too attached, since it's just for one night, and advises her to use whatever is inside carefully. Soie screams at Minerva not to cause trouble. As to see Minerva already creating a ruckus, Jagger punches Minerva, saying that she's already making a fuss before he even finishes talking. Minerva screams back at Jagger, calling him a damn fool and claiming she can't bear it anymore, ordering her minions to attack. Diablo, Mammon, and Ishtar tackle him and throw him out, as the meows punch Doe and Jagger. Minerva comments that it's their victory. Jagger asks when these little kittens grew so big and why their names are like that. Soie explains that Diablo and Mammon are devil names, and Ishtar is a goddess. She adds that if Minerva is going to name them, at least give them some consistency. Jagger agrees. Minerva insists that's just how her heart feels, and while she knows it's fine with him, what about the kittens? Soie states that if Minerva said it's okay, that would be a lie, and it seems quite sad. Minerva retorts that at best they are just superficial beings, so she doesn't care. Soie asks if she can be honest. Minerva frowns and moves aside, saying that they are not that weak. Jagger suggests they stop here for today and go to sleep. The scene shifts downstairs as Gwenon's wife comments that it's finally quiet. Ares notes that she guesses humans are such noisy creatures and asks if she can go take a look around, but her mother declines. Gwenon then questions whether the demon detector they installed at home isn't broken, to which his wife replies that the one emitting light and warning sounds with demon approval is, of course, not broken, as he repaired himself before going on the quest. Gwenon realizes that this means the signature Jagger isn't a demon. His wife asks why and what happened in the human world. Gwenon explains that rather than work, he has seen many gruesome and cruel sins, concluding that humans are just not trustworthy. His wife counters that even before the establishment of the dwarves, they had interactions with humans. From the perspective of the entire species, it is a necessary matter. Gwenon argues that family is just as important as work, and asks her to stay by Eris's side from now on. His wife agrees, prompting Gwenon to suggest they stop the conversation there. He tells Eris that it's late, and she should go to her room and sleep. She agrees and heads out, thinking that she wants to talk to the invited humans and wonders if there is a way to do so. She runs off, considering that maybe she can talk to them while having a late-night snack. As she tries to get it, she thinks that she doesn't have much to offer. Suddenly, a suspicious person came in from behind. Eris wonders if a mouse just came in. She decides there's nothing to care about and thinks to return to her room, but then she screams as seeing something behind her.